You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Thursday. It is time for episode 2 of your bi-weekly options extravaganza known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are feasting these days. Hope you're enjoying the smorgasbord coming at you this week. Great OBC yesterday, great pro Q&A for the pro folks over there on Tuesday with our buddy Scott Nations, of course, crypto, and episode 1 of the Option Block on Monday. Even a lot of my chats from the OIC conference starting to hit the tape as well. So good stuff. I'm looking forward to listening to the Flowmaster State of the Industry speech. I haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, but we have all that panel audio coming for you soon and a whole bunch more over there. So listen to this. Make sure you're listening to the full network. And then B, if you want to get that stuff early, a lot of our pro folks have already been binging on a lot of the OIC stuff. It's all, well, not all, but a good chunk of it is up there already. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to get early access to all that stuff. Of course, get our pro Q&As like we did on Tuesday with Scott Nations, like options oddities coming up at the end of the week there after vol views, great giveaways, all sorts of fun. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more about that fun as we go around the horn and learn who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East, where we are joined once again by the Flowmaster himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz from the aforementioned Cboe. Mr. Flowmaster, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you, Mark. I'm always happy to join you. I am on the East Coast today, but I'm not actually in the office. I'm taking a half day, but I am working it around the option block.
Must be nice, all these half days over there in exchange. I do want to take some time to sit down and listen to your state of the. I missed it at OIC, but I always know I can listen to it after the fact. So I'm looking forward to that. I also is the presentation floating around out there? Maybe we'll link that as well, so the folks can watch along as they listen, sir. For everybody who missed it.
I'll send you the PDF. You're welcome to.
That would be awesome. Then our listeners would very much, because I know your presentation is very visual, and the folks want to follow along with all those fragmentation charts, sir. It's good listening, and indeed good watching, if I do say so myself, listeners. And then heading out to the ever hospitable shores of St. Charles along the Fox River there again, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, how go things in the land of Skippies, Gyros, and Lemonade, sir?
Hey, all is good. Can't complain. And I have some things to say here once it's my turn to talk in the trading block. I'm excited.
I can complain. Those bastards of Skippy yet to cut me a check for all the free plugs I've given them for over a decade. So why do I keep plugging them? I don't know. The hell with them. As we keep on rolling and go out to the Southern Volatility Mecca, at least it used to be. Now I think it's Denver, Colorado, or somewhere in that area. Utah maybe this year out there. So the former Southern Volatility Mecca, where we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, how go things in the land once known as the Southern Volatility Mecca, now just awesome?
Mark, Utah and Colorado are not south.
No, they're just the new volatility mecca. Wherever RMC is the
give you a little lesson on geography.
Well, southern, not south. It's more of the roving volatility mecca that's anointed.
That would be the mountain volatility mecca, not the southern volatility mecca.
So you're saying there's a regional volatility mecca? I was just saying.
Yeah, you've got the mountain mecca, you got the southern mecca, you've got the obviously you've got the East Coast mecca that is New York, and of course you have the center of all things derivative, Chicago, Illinois.
I enjoy the tri-state area volatility mecca, which is surprisingly not New York City, but actually Hoboken. How weird is that? As we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down what the heck is trading out there. And you can probably see why Uncle Mike's got so much to say. Most of the major indices at or pretty much just off of fresh new all-time highs out there. Dow was 40K not too long ago out there. Most of the major indices now firmly in the green yet again today. So it's been a wave of green ever since the CPI number came out earlier this week, maybe calming some fears on the inflationary front. It did seem like we were already in perhaps a bit of a sell vol, at least, to start May and go away. And folks definitely don't seem to be reticent on that front. Coming into the start of the show, we had the S&P up about 0.2%, NASDAQ up about 0.15%, and the Dow up about 0.2%. So again, not a rollicking rally-ho market out there, but it's something. It's something to sink your teeth into out there. Of course, never be one to go along with the crowd, spoiling the party. A bit of a party pooper today out there, our small caps. Off nearly 0.5% today, about 0.45% right now. So small caps saying, you know what? Stick a pin in your bull party. We're selling off out there today. All that a long way around to VIX is slightly up actually on the day, which is interesting. We've had a little bit of a run now of markets up and VIX up, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. But of course, going back to the show we did last on Monday, VIX is net down almost a full point, about 0.9 of a point. It was at about a 12.45 when we kicked off the show. VVIX, as we were talking about on VolViews last week, it's in some rarefied air. It has managed to tick up ever so slightly, up about 2 points from the Monday show, at about a 77 when we kicked off the show. But again, it was hanging out below 75 not too long ago, which again is something to pay attention to these days as we go around the horn and see what everyone's paying attention to. And Uncle Mike says he's got some stuff to say, so that certainly intrigues me. So I might want to head out to the land of St. Charles first. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, the floor is yours. What is on your mind, sir?
Never before in the history of the entire stock market has there ever been a better time to sell than there has been today. We got new all-time highs in the S&P 500. It's always exciting when that happens. Once again, just to reiterate, to keep my compliance people happy, I'm not saying that today is the best day to sell. I'm just saying that in the history of the market, there's never been a better time to sell because of the fact that the market's never been higher. Nobody can dispute that. With that being said, some things that we have going on today. We had a little bit of a pop in the markets earlier, but looks like we're tapering off a little bit. In the S&P, we got up to 53.25. We're back down at the 53.17 level. So not a huge pop, but nonetheless a pop, and it's an all-time high pop. So who cares about the pop? We have a relatively flat VIX on the day. We have a flat bond market on the day as well. And we have flat metals. So a lot of things are flat on the day overall. However, we do have some movers and shakers as I'm looking at my tape. Chubb, ticker symbol CB, that's up 4% on the day, up over $10 above the 260 level. That's probably the biggest mover and shaker. That was one of our last covered calls that wasn't in the money. It's now in the money going into expiration tomorrow. So we'll see how that ends up. And then a couple other things that we have going on today with regard to market movement. JP Morgan, ticker symbol JBM, up 1% on the day, up $2. That's been having a nice rally lately. A couple other things that we're seeing out there. The biggest shocker is what's not rallying or not moving. Normally on days when things aren't moving and you want to see some movement, you can count on NVIDIA, but NVIDIA is only up $3 on the day. So that's up 0.3%. So that's very disappointing in terms of movement. A couple other movers. We have Google up roughly 1% on the day. We have, we have Ford up over 1% on the day. Apple above the 190 mark. So perhaps this could be another run at 200 to see if that's something that is feasible, but you never know with Apple. But overall, we are not getting a lot of movement today. And I think that what I'm believing is going to happen is that we have all-time highs. So the hope in me is that all-time highs oftentimes can become all-time higher. And we'll see where that moves. But we're going to need some type of additional catalyst to get us to move that, to push the needle higher. And with the CPI number this week, it seems like that movement, if you will, is kind of run out of steam, at least for the time being. And we'll see where we go from there. But once again, it's always exciting on new all-time high days.
Mr. Uncle Mike, I believe you misspoke. I think you said Ford is up, and we all know that's not possible. So I think you should check your numbers again, sir, because Ford, not exactly a banger these days. As we keep on rolling, let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, a lot going on since you and I last chatted in person down in North Carolina, sir. What's lighting up your tape on an intriguing Thursday, sir?
Well, it's definitely been an interesting day. And I know that I too am cautioned against giving any sort of advice or proclamations. But yesterday morning, it was certainly the best time in a long, long time to sell some GameStop, as that name woke back up. I actually have once I start getting inbound requests from reporters to talk about meme stocks, I kind of know this is the environment we're in. And I actually did run some data to, there's no perfect definition of a meme stock, but then again, we all know when we see it, right? And so, looking for names that have had, double-digit, if not triple-digit moves, that we're seeing, and also I also kind of cross-reference that with inverted skew conditions. So when we see that super jacked up call wing compared to the put wing, and where we are right now, it's a little frothy. I'm pretty safe to say that. We see about 300 names over $2 that have an inverted skew. That's higher than it's been. Just kind of shows you what's going on. There's some names that are making some crazy moves out there. And, but I agree with Mike. You know what it is? We seem to be we're back into the Goldilocks frame of mind, I guess, where we're all hopeful again that the Fed will cut rates maybe once or twice, and that we're going to kind of have this perfect landing.
Indeed. Add to the spicy stew that was this week, of course, the meme stock craze that kicked back in for a session, maybe a session and a half. Seems like the bloom is coming off the rose now. Oh, how surprising. Who could have foreseen such a thing? But it was fun while it lasted. Hope you folks had some fun trading against the, shall we say, over bullish folks out there. All take advantage of the dislocations is what we always say to you folks out there at the end of the day. Take advantage of the fact that you're not on here recording shows all the time when these big moves happen, so you can take advantage of them. As we keep on rolling out to the land used to be known as the Southern Volatility Mecca, we have established at the top of the show there are now regional volatility meccas throughout the U.S., and that RMC has just moved now to the Mountain Volatility Mecca. But he insists Austin is still the Southern Volatility Mecca. Mr. Meatball, sir, what is catching your eye out there this week?
Yeah, it's been they really like that CPI number a lot. We got a nice big move out of it. Yet again, premium too cheap. They were pricing in the CPI move for about $40. We moved $60, and they continue to underprice event risk, which I think is really interesting. Number two, the VIX back below 12 or back below 13, back to now to 1245, lowest level we've seen in a while. And we have the meme stock craze. That was just unbelievable trading. You could get in and out of put spreads and call spreads for credits. It was just glorious. Today you do have Apple over 190. It's kind of interesting. That might be them doing some buying. We see some strength in the chips. AMD's having a nice day after a really rough go of it. Deere and Company, they reported some decent earnings, but the market didn't like it and taking them out to the woodshed. But then you look around at Target and Walmart and some of the other big industrial names like J&J or 3M, and there's some strong buying there. So it's a kind of an interesting day. If not for Deere, I think the Dow would be booming higher. And right now the Dow is over 40,000. I believe that's the first time that it has gotten there. So congrats, Dow Jones Industrial Average. And now, of course, it goes to 39,996. But for a brief moment there, the Dow was above 40,000. So congratulations. Get out your Dow 40,000 hats. Get out your Dow 40,000 streamers and whistles and everything that you can think of revolving around the Dow Jones.
How did you know I had a whistle that said Dow 40,000 on it, sir? I was just waiting.
I know how you operate, Longo. You are a creature of celebration.
I am indeed. And never let it be said I didn't like a good tchotchke out, even though we give all of them out to our pro members at the end of the day. Really quickly, because I know you watch all things 0 day, sir. It's been an intriguing week on the 0 day front. You mentioned premium kind of underpriced. Anything else catching your eye out there in the 0 day world these days?
Yeah, just it continues to increase as a percentage of total volume in SPX and the NDX related options. Mark, I thought this was fascinating. So the last day, April 30th, I was looking at this number today and I was astounded. Do you know what percentage of volume 0DTE was on April 30th?
Total volume or like SPX kind of thing?
Of SPX and NDX and Qs and SPY. I'm
going to say, given your tone, it's going to be higher than the normal 50. I'm going to say 62%.
It was 58%.
Okay, yeah.
Back of the envelope on that, Mark. Let's just say that the average trade has 25 deltas to it. You're talking about basically 2 times the delta trading in 0DTE than trade in the S&P 500 futures. That, to me, is something to think about and maybe has some ramifications. You tell me.
Something to think about indeed. We did, if you want to talk about more about 0 day listeners, I did exactly that with just about everybody you could think of. Everybody whose job it is to make decisions on these things down at OIC. Some of that's starting to hit the tape already. My chat with the folks at Robinhood already hit My chat with JJ hit this morning. We'll have more coming from the various exchanges, other brokers, all kinds of fun coming your way about people whose job it is to actually decide things on this stuff, putting your questions to them. That's what we do here, listeners, because we like you folks out there at the end of the day. Let's see what the market is liking a little bit of paper out there. And the answer, as it usually is, listeners, is it kind of depends where you're looking. If you're just living in VIX today, man, you are having a banger day. The game is afoot in VIX today. Already almost 1 million contracts, 904,000 contracts. Never let it be said that VIX does not like a new all-time high in the major indexes, because it is printing some paper today. The big dog out there today, 75,000 of the July 18 calls. It looks like actually there's a bit of a funky risk reversal afoot out there. It looks like it's a ratio risk reversal. It's the July 14.5, 18 risk reversal. It's like paper selling the call 70,000 times and buying 22,000 of the puts. So we don't see a ton of those very often out there, a ratio risk reversal / collar, but that appears to be what we're seeing out there today. So that alone accounts for close to 100,000 of the 904,000 contracts. Either way, the ADV has plummeted since our last show. It's down nearly 100,000 contracts to 793. I have a feeling it's going to be moving the other way after today. You never know what's going to light a fire in VIX. Apparently today, it's new all-time highs because they're putting up some numbers. SPY, though. SPY looking like it forgot to get out of bed, or maybe its alarm clock didn't go off. It just managed to barely tick over 4 million just a second ago, 4.05 million actually. The ADV coming back below 8 million, 7.94. So it seems like it's just sluggish today, but it'll probably get there. Same can be said for the S listeners. It was at about 1.5 million when we last ran the numbers. Now it's up to about 1.63 million. So it's closing in on that 1 3/4 level we tend to expect. I guess the major broad indices were just a little sluggish to start the day today. The ADV still 3.01 million out there, so it seems like it's on pace to hit that today. Small caps, like we said, they're the party pooper today. They are selling off hard today, putting up 483,000 contracts. We have to do more than that though if it's going to hit its ADV today of 1.3 million. That's a heck of a lot of paper for small caps. So takes a lot to meet that. Doesn't seem like they're on track for it today, even with this interesting adverse move out there. Doesn't seem like it's going to cut it, but again, the day is still young. We shall see. The Qs, 1.65 million, also surprisingly light out there, very light out there, given the fact that the ADV is about 3.5 million. They also have a long way to go. Usually they're hanging out about 2.25 right now, so seeing the Qs this low is somewhat surprising and a little bit distracting out there, which is, you can probably say the same for what's going on out here in single names today, listeners. Surprising, distracting, weird, all of the above applies to what we're seeing out there in the single names, listeners. Let's kick it off. Number 10 cost you 284,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. So again, a sneaky busy day out there. It just depends where you're looking. If you're looking at Amazon, you're looking pretty good. 284,000 for the number 10 spot today. So Amazon not liking that new all-time high in the Dow, its newly minted index, selling off about 85 cents today, almost 0.5%. So giving back a little bit today after the endless euphoria that was Dow all-time high. You know, Tosaw killed it. And now Meatball following up, also killing it, saying Dow's at all-time high. Bam! Amazon selling off. That was the kiss of death. Number 10, 284,000. Number 9, Walmart. Walmart surprising some folks out there today. 63 and about 2/3, up nearly $4, 3.80, or about 6 1/3%. Talking about good sales out there, how they're managing to keep prices down and fight against inflation. All that a story the street likes and the options market likes today too, to the tune of 374,000 contracts. You know it's earnings season when Walmart's sneaking in to the top 10. Not usually a banger on the option front, but today, again, doing nearly 400K. We're already at number 9, or we're already almost at 400,000. So that is, again, sneaky, decent paper out there. Number 8, again, a weird day today. Number 8 is the fruit company, Apple, falling all the way down to number 8 again after a brief resurgence over the last couple of weeks. Apple still managing to tread water around that 190 level. And man, what a month it's had in Apple. about a month ago, almost exactly, actually. It was April 19th. It hit 165. Ever since then, it's been on the rampage. 190 pretty much even right now, listeners. Goes to show what happens when you spend, $100 billion on a stock. It tends to go up, at least in the short term. And that is the case right now. So everyone I know 2/3 of you voted, you were on the Warren Buffett side of that trade. You wanted to sell Apple. Not looking great right now. In the long term, again, it's anyone's guess. But right now, the Tim Cook freight train that is $100 billion worth of stock just running everybody over out there to the north. Good for number 8, 521,000. Number 7. There's some funkiness afoot out there. Are we back again, the meme stock era? Because Faraday Future Intelligent Electric Inc., ticker symbol FFIE, say all that 5 times fast, listeners. I dare you. Is coming in at number 7 today. 529,000 contracts on the tape. This is a $1.80 stock. It's up $1.05 today, or 148%. Oh, it was 76 cents just earlier this morning. My goodness. Banger. Obviously, the folks are maybe spent on Game and AMC. They're turning their attention to a little bit of FFIE. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was probably the ones and now the 1/2 and 2 calls maybe that are lighting it up. But you know what? Let's go find out. I don't think I've ever typed the ticker FFIE into any of my analysis machines before. So this is kind of fun in and of itself. Oh, no, I'm wrong, listeners. The big dog out there today of this over 500,000 contracts, 7,600 of the May 1/2 puts going up for 35 cents. So maybe paper fading the hell out of this. This was opening another 76. So total of over 15,000 of these have already traded for 35 cents this morning. Well, my goodness. I think got half puts. I love when we're talking half strikes. Listen, this is all good. Hopefully the viceroy, wherever he is not listening to this because he would be deeply offended by all this paper. But yeah, FFIE fighting its way up to our top 10 today. Let's just look really quickly. What's it been like on the last year? Oh, a year ago, it was $59.76, and it rallied all the way up, listeners, in June 16th to 117 and a third. It is now $1.74. That's after a banger rally out there today. So my goodness. What a year, what a day, what a name out there, listeners. FFIE. Meme, if ever there was one. Speaking of the memes, let's go to the name that kicked it all off. It is GameStop, number 6, $31, pretty much even, off about $8.50, or 21% in the other direction. We talked about it on Monday, how it seemed like, once again, people are starting to lose their minds. But those are good things for options and vol traders because it gives you dislocations to take advantage of. Looks like GameStop got up to about $64.83 earlier this week before pretty much giving it all back. We're down to $61 right now, 61.43 or so. Good for 533,000 contracts and the number 6 spot. Number 5, we're going out to China, listeners. It is BABA, number 5, 86 1/3, up 5 1/3. Saw someone hawking the other day a leveraged, I think 2x BABA ETF. Why the hell do you need that? Who needs a leveraged 2x regular underlying ETF? I could see it maybe on some vol products and other things like that. It makes a certain amount of sense. Even on the major indices, I could see an argument for it. I don't love them. I've always called them poor man's options, but I could see a use case. BABA, you can't do that yourself? I don't know. That just cracks me up. Either way, is there a demand for that? Number 5, BABA, 544,000 contracts. Number 4, going back to meme land, listeners, it is AMC, 585,000 contracts. AMC back below $5, $4.97, off about $0.50. How high did it get this week? It got up to $11.82 this week. Of course, if we go all the way back a year, it got up to $62.30. Of course, that was part of that whole craziness with the conversion out there. So read into that number a little bit of a grain of salt. Either way, number 4, AMC out there today, listeners. Number 3, a name many of you love, maybe some of you hate. It's NVIDIA, 946.64, up about $0.33 today. good for 849,000 contracts. Number 2, AMD, up $5.50 today, 165.10 or so, up 3.4%. Analysts coming out today saying they prefer AMD to NVIDIA now, so that's causing a little bit of tumult out there in the chip world, but not enough to kick the king from its throne. Tesla, number 1 again, 979,000 contracts on the tape. 174.42, up about 40 cents today, so kind of unched right now. Kind of a light day for Tesla on the underlying movement side, but not on the volume side. 979 out there. In terms of earnings, like I mentioned, we still have some popping off. We had Alibaba this week. We had Cisco. We had Walmart, as I mentioned today. Under Armour. They've been having some problems of late out there. A good old Under Armour and Applied Materials. Let's look really quickly. I mentioned Walmart already. Baidu had earnings today as well. They were popping off before the bell. They were at 110.75 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 5.4%. They delivered 2.9%. So a little bit of underperformance there. They're actually up now about 0.25%. So they are delivering a whole bunch of nothing. So premium sellers winning out there in Baidu today. Let's see. Let's check in on Cisco really quickly as well. They were yesterday after the bell. About almost $50. 49.70 is where they were trading going into their announcement. They were pricing in 4.2%. They have now delivered 2.5% to the dark side. So decent little move out there, listeners. Let's just keep rolling out here. There are a ton of names popping off this week. Let's look really quick. Let's just do a couple after the bell. Let's go AMAT after the bell today. They were at 217.5 when we ran this report. They're pricing in $10.25. Get this, in the past they've moved $6.40. So almost $4 worth of extra juice, $3.85. That's a heck of a lot of juice on top of the squeeze already out there in AMAT. Is that worth it? I guess we'll find out later today, listeners. A whole bunch of those. Zoom popping off, Take-Two, still a bunch of names. Target, NVIDIA you may have heard of. They're popping off on the 22nd. Snowflake 22nd as well. Luckily for you, we have the numbers crunched for all of them over there. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. The season hanging out right now just ticked back down this past week. This past week, a bit of a downer, 76%, so dramatic underperformance. That brings our overall average for the season down to 109%, which is exactly in line with our long-term average of 109%. So very interesting stuff. You can see it all for yourself. We also tweet it out during the week over there at Options on most of your major social media platforms. But now it's time to unleash the beast that is the Flowmaster. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we break down all the weird, the wild, just wondrous paper that is lighting up our tapes today. Mr. Flowmaster, I just discussed a newcomer for us here on the show, which is everyone's new favorite, FFIE. I take it is now your new favorite as well, sir?
It is. I'm kind of bummed that I missed this one because it really started to pick up last week when it was a 5-cent stock. And I didn't see it. I was traveling on Monday, but if you go back to the average daily volume in this thing was only barely 1,000 contracts. And on Friday, about 1,700 calls traded. And then on Monday, about 8,000 calls traded. Stock was still under a dime. And, and you mentioned the 50-cent strike. And, it's funny, we've done this for a long time. And I think all of us tend to, laugh when we see options trading on a sub-dollar stock, right? It just seems a little silly. This is a China-based electric vehicle, an intelligent something company. And it looks like it just got into kind of this frenzy of squeeziness, possibly, meme stock behavior. Maybe you've got influencers talking it up overseas or something. But if you look at the trade that just that kind of blows my mind is on Monday. There were the May contracts that expire tomorrow. We see about 3,000 or 4,000 of them opened between a penny and 9 cents. So those are now. Although the stock keeps halting, but
Henry, do you know what the split adjusted high for this stock was?
No.
FFIE. So it's reverse split a couple times on 2 occasions. Let me look here. On February 1st, 2021, the split adjusted price for this stock
I'm looking at it now.
was $4,980.
Wow, that is impressive. We talk about the vol ETPs and value erosion. That is some impressive value destruction.
That is UVXY like it's so bad.
Yes. Oh my God. And that wasn't that long ago. That was just 2021.
Yeah. I also see headlines about them delisting from NASDAQ and some sort of rogue YouTube video post that the company had to say they had nothing to do with. It just seems like a lot of some shenanigans are going on. When we get into, actually, I was
he's calling shenanigans, folks. He's calling shenanigans.
I sound like Sebastian, I know, but there was actually, when I was in Chicago yesterday, I was lucky enough to meet up with Sosnoff from Tasty Trade for a bit. And, he really is, he's a true believer when it comes to options, he's a celebrity, but he really, keeps hammering the point that there's a lot of speculative capital that people want to put to work, and they kind of do it, tactically. And, when we saw the GameStop example, right, which was like a pre-market tweet that nobody could make any sense out of, and then the stock, doubled, basically in the blink of an eye. I think you get a lot of people starting to play some games like, okay, well, we know that the potential's there for these stocks to double or triple. We know that the liquidity community is aware of that and basically is going to get the heck out of the way when things start to get weird. And I think some people go around probing, trying to figure out, okay, what names are kind of thinly traded and might have a little bit of a sensational streak to them. And this FFIE is kind of the poster child. And GameStop was too, but man, GameStop was a quick one. I knew some people that did scalp, like Mark said, you could get in, you could get out. I knew a guy that sold some stock at $70 and, but if your timing was off, you covered it at 60. And then by the time you rebooted your machine, it was down at 35 again. So a little crazy out there.
Or if you did that back in 2021, you sold it at 60 and bought it back at over 1,000. So, yeah.
Those Chinese ADRs, any ADR, it's a little bit dicey because, it's the information flow is very, very different in these names. And, China, I think, is probably one of the most volatile just because things are happening over there politically. And, there's a lot of people that don't trust the numbers that are published. It's a different animal.
You don't get a lot of names going from over 4,000 to a nickel in the span of a few years. That's impressive. And then back up to $1.80. I mean, the whole stock, the whole underlying was an option when it's at a nickel at that point, listeners. My goodness. Were you slinging any of this FFIE? Mark, you were talking about it. It sounds like it came across your radar this week, sir.
No, just when you brought it up. I hadn't been looking at it at all. I wish I had. You know what actually had a similar occurrence last week? Was SPCE. That's another one they pushed around. Mm-hmm. It went from, on the 14th. So that was Tuesday. On the 14th, that thing went from, below $1 to a high of 143. It's pulled back. But we're starting to see some of this, to quote Henry Schwartz, shenanigans take place in some of these little baby stocks.
There might be some shenanigans afoot out there, listeners. As we keep going, if that's not enough F ticker shenanigans for you, listeners, let's go out to FUTU Holdings out there, ticker symbol FUTU. Going back to China, this is a Chinese brokerage and wealth management platform, listeners. The largest investor is Tencent, if you're wondering. So on the gaming front, which is interesting. 77.12 right now, up about $2.50 or 3.4%. On the year, it's had quite the odyssey. A year ago was 41.25. That was pretty close to the low. The low came a little bit after that, right around $36 in May. Since then, it's been mostly up to, including a good run here from this year. Year to date, it got rallied, then it sold back off beginning of the year to about $45. And ever since the year has kicked off, it's up 50% or 25 handles. So a nice run just this year for FUTU. Mr. Flowmaster, if you can tear your eyes away from FFIE, what was catching your eye out there in FUTU, sir?
Yeah, so this is it is a China-based company, but I've actually met with them in New York. They have a U.S. broker dealer, so they're more of kind of an international, brokerage company that just happens to be based in Hong Kong. I think it's a little bit less wacky as some of these other ones. Today's trade is just a really simple one. It was a $1.20 buyer of 3,000 of the June 90 calls, opening a new position. Stock was at 76 at the time. It's bigger than average volume in there is only about 11,000 contracts a day total. So this is one trade that's basically half the average daily call volume. Just a real simple directional trade. I think that, I don't think it's part of kind of the whole meme craziness, but, looking for the nice, simple, opening relatively aggressive trades in terms of size. And, this was executed in a big sweep, just kind of is a vote of confidence by somebody that's got, a decent amount of capital, $300,000 worth of capital to put it to work.
Mr. Meatball, sir, you weren't part of. Looks like we all kind of missed the boat on FFIE. Anything catching your eye out there in your beloved FUTU, sir?
There's nothing I like to trade more than FUTU Holdings. It's S&P 500 options and then FUTU for me. That's it.
Number one and number two every day.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? This one, FUTU, Cboe are my two favorite stocks. There's some pretty decent open interest in this one in June. It's got 3,500 of the 75s open, a couple thousand of the 80s, almost 4,000 of the 85s, and now you've got some buying on the 90s. So you got to wonder whether something interesting is going to happen in this one sometime soon.
There you go, listeners. From FFIE to FUTU. Now we go out to a name most of us have heard of, and we've talked about on the show in the past. This is Snap Inc. You know them, you love them, maybe you hate them. They call themselves a camera company, even though they have many other irons in the fire. You could argue the camera side is probably the least impactful side of their business. Trading $15.95, off about 30 cents or nearly 2% today. On the year, a decent year though. A year ago was $8.61. All these rumors of the death of TikTok certainly helping Snap. Even though, again, for the limited perspective of seeing, the kids in my son's age group, seem like most of them are hanging out on the Snap more than the TikTok these days. But you never know. Very fickle demographic they're going for out there. Hung out at $8.50 about a year ago. Then it sold off again after rallying to about $13 in July. Back down in September to $8.50. Then it shot up January, beginning of this year. Started the year hot. $17.90. That was their high for the year. And then they just fell off a cliff after their announcement on February 6th. They dropped 35% after that announcement, just in a single session. So clearly not bueno news out there, listeners. Obviously, they're getting their clock clean on some of the social media front. Hung out in the $11 range for a while, and then recently roaring back up. Obviously, this news about TikTok, not exactly bad for Snap. Roaring back to life from $11 April 24th, hitting $17 and change on May 7th. Just a couple of weeks out there, just popping hard. Now hanging out today, $15.93. That said, Mr. Flowmaster, sounds like somebody might be swinging for a little bit of the upside fences. What caught your eye out there in Snap this week, sir?
Well, that's true. It's and I was talking about this inverted skew configuration, and Snap is one of them. The 25 delta calls are 2 or 3 vol points above the puts, really going out. Looks to me going out at least 60 days. And the call to put ratio in there this morning is like 4-to-1. That's low. It's a high ratio of calls to puts. It's higher than normal, but this is normally does have a pretty heavy, like I think the average call to put is 2-to-1. And what jumped out at me is what I would kind of consider lottery ticket style flow in the June 20 calls. So stocks at $16, and these June 20 calls, I see a big sweep of them, almost 6,000. They're paying 9 cents. Some a little bit earlier too. Looks like almost what, 15,000 on the day, 16,000. These are opening. We're talking about almost 25% out of the money. And I've picked 3 kind of crazy bullish names today. That's what it looks like. This looks like another one. I would point out though that a lot of the other research that we've been putting out, and my colleague Mandy Zhu has been talking about, is the flatness or the cheapness of hedges and indexes. So if you're some of these names seem to have some very heavy speculation happening. If that's actually a warning sign, which in my view I feel a little bit nervous just because we've had a really strong rebound from that April sell-off. If you are nervous, basically some sort of put trade in the broad indexes, SPX, are relatively kind of cheap compared to how they've been in the past.
All right, listeners, if you couldn't get enough of fun there with all those crazy names we just talked about, let's get to a little bit of your fun right now, a little bit of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, let's get to it. The old mail block. We asked you folks last week first. Let's pay off those. First off, are you buying or selling? Buying or selling Apple? We were debating on the Monday show last week. Tim Cook's buying Apple. Warren Buffett's selling it. 2/3 of you exactly said you're selling it. As I mentioned at the top of the show, not right now the winning side of that trade. We'll see in the long term who is the winner out there. As we also asked you last week, do you think we'll have listed 0 DTE options in your favorites, Tesla, NVIDIA, and Apple, before the end of the year? Once again, you folks can't make up your mind. Exactly evenly split, 37% each for yes and no, with 26% coming in for you don't trade 0 DTE. So thanks a lot for making the determination for it. We look to you folks to be the ultimate arbiter at the end of the day, and you folks failed us there. You can't make up your minds whether we're going to get. I understand. It's a difficult one. So we went back to that well again this week. Another hot product you folks have been asking us a lot about lately, which we discussed a lot at OIC. Stay tuned to all my content coming out from there. You'll hear everybody's thoughts on this issue, and then maybe that will impact how you vote in this. But we're asking you this week, do you think that the options on the Bitcoin ETFs will be approved this year? Very straightforward. Looking for a yes or a no. Uncle Mike, I know you are the biggest crypto fan in residence here on the show. I mean, every time I toss to you and you're distracted, I know you're gobbling up a little bit more Shiba Inu for the holdings out there. So you can't get enough crypto. What do you think? You think we're going to see the options on these much ballyhooed ETFs this year? Yes or no, sir? And what do you think our audience is voting?
I'll say yes and yes, just because I'm the optimist with which I am. Because they're much ballyhooed, I think they'll be a priority. And the Flowmaster would probably have more insight on this than me, but I'll just blindly have optimism and say yes. When is blind optimism ever a bad thing, right?
That's why I turned to you for blind optimism on crypto, right?
That's me.
Some might argue that's the reason you're on this show. I can see you. Stop buying more Shiba Inu. The show's not even over yet. Give it a break, sir. As we keep on rolling, let's go out to the Meatball, not usually our resident optimist. Mr. Meatball, sir, do you think we're going to have options on these hot Bitcoin ETFs for the end of the year? Yes or no? And then B, what do you think our audience is voting for?
Yeah, I would think so. I would imagine it would be in the next few weeks. I don't know how many times they've pushed off the options, but I know people want to see that. So yeah, I think we will.
People definitely want to see it. Whether the regulators want to see it is the big question. Mr. Flowmaster, as our duly appointed and anointed exchange rep, the last word is yours. What do you think in terms of whether we'll see him? And B, what do you think our audience is voting?
Well, I'm lucky enough to have the office next to one of our lawyers who's deeply involved in this. There is a lot of discussion happening. The industry is really trying to educate the regulators and show off that, the derivatives can be used to minimize and adjust risk, not just speculate. I think that, we are kind of stuck in this regulatory limbo between the CFTC and the SEC. And this is really kind of the downside of the framework that we have in the U.S. and have had for a long time. I don't think we're going to see them in the next 2 or 3 months. I am actually pretty hopeful that we'll see them in the fall, though. So I think that there'll be a push from a high enough place that the regulators finally say, okay, we should actually take some sort of action here. Because if the CFTC is going to say, no, we're going to keep control of these, and that's what everybody's waiting for, is for them to say this is fine. Then at least you kind of have a path to getting them on futures products, there are derivatives, there are options on Bitcoin futures already, but the ETFs let retail and kind of a much wider base of users have access. So I think we'll see some progress, but I wouldn't expect it really until the end of the summer.
I will say I went into the conference a lot more optimistic on these than I came out after talking to everybody over the last couple of weeks. It did seem like if there was one thing that people were most sour on the prospects for, it was these. It was the options on the Bitcoin ETF. Some people were saying it's a question even of if rather than when, that they're that far away with the regulators right now, which was kind of surprising to me. Again, we'll post all that audio so you folks can hear it and decide for yourselves, listeners. But I have to vote, unfortunately, on that front. That means I'm leaning towards the no. And it sounds like our audience leaning that way as well. 59.1% saying no, 40.9% saying yes. Again, I would be very happy to be proven wrong. I would love to have these in our hands tomorrow. Just doesn't seem like that is going to happen given the way the winds are blowing out there. As the winds for the show continue to blow right on into the final segment, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's go around the horn, see what everyone's keeping an eye on until the Monday episode. We will start with you, the uncleest of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, you just got finished saying your most favoriteest thing in the world. Never a better time to sell. What else can you possibly look forward to, sir?
I mean, it's all-time highs. I'm definitely keeping an eye on that, of course. That's a big deal. Also watching the metals with all this inflation talk. I think the metals still need to be viewed and monitored very closely. And then 4.5 on the 10-year note. That's what I'm watching.
Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on throughout the weekend until the Monday episode?
Yeah, you got to watch. You got to keep an eye on bonds. Boeing's looking pretty interesting. It was up 6, down 5 yesterday, up 5 today. There's some movement there. Is Costco going to $1,000? That's a question I have over the night by the end of the year. That is a question I have, and obviously I think we're in limbo until NVIDIA reports next week. NVIDIA is the market. Don't forget it.
NVIDIA, it's all NVIDIA's market. We're just living it. I took Boeing off my watch list when they moved from across the street, and I can no longer get their delicious Wednesday barbecue. I thought, why bother watching this? I have no reason to watch the stock anymore, Mr. Meatball. So I'll take your word for it that it is popping out there today. But intriguing stuff. Mr. Flowmaster, the last word is yours, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next Thursday? What's the next FFIE we can look forward to, sir?
Oh, I wish I knew. If I knew, if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. But, I am watching kind of the meme fallout, if this was a blip or if we're really going to continue to see a lot of action. Mark, Sebastian, you mentioned, the 0 day is on fire, and it's been on fire. One of the reasons is if you, I have a query that basically does the daily performance if you bought a straddle shortly after the open, and the I'm going to actually get you some data because we were talking about that before. But the fact that we've had a lot of very, very flat days in the last couple of weeks, so that the premium sellers, okay, that there is a community of these vertical put spread and call spread sellers that kind of start out the day and they repeat the strategy every single day. And there's some special sauce. Some people skip Fed day and do a few other tricks. But the premium sellers have done pretty well for the last couple of weeks because we've had some if you look at the market right now, I think SPX is dead flat. Or I think we're maybe up a buck at this point. But so, this is the exact conditions that these premium harvesters want. So that's why we're seeing such strong numbers there. I'm going to personally be looking for kind of some places to lighten up on Delta, maybe try to buy some cheap put spreads or cheap puts, just because, we've had a pretty solid run here. The market has been on a tear for years. And, I want to kind of be a little conservative, and you never know when we're going to see a pullback.
Besides, we're all out there hunting for the next FFIE. Easy for me to say out there, listeners. Unfortunately, that music means the hunt has concluded, at least for this show, but not for the network today. Stay tuned if you're listening live on the Pro. We'll be back in a little bit with our good buddy, Mr. Rich Excel, breaking down all the paper out there on the old CME front this week. Let's lighten it up and let's say, nat gas, metals, the S&P. You never know. Stay tuned to TWIFO to find out. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if folks want more Uncle Mike goodness in their lives, where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw. I put a lot of content out. Feel free to check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, if you want to set up an appointment with me. And got a webinar coming up on the 21st. Follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn to get a link for that at Mike Tosaw.
And Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. Folks want to debate the various geographical locations of volatility meccas, or if they want some options learning, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at OptionPit. At OptionPit.
At OptionPit, the place to go. And last but not least, he is the one, the only, the Flowmaster, sir. Sir, if folks want to kick the tires and light the fires on all this cool stuff we've been talking about, including we were talking about flexes down at OIC a couple weeks ago. Is that data in Trade Alert, A? And B, if folks want to see it all for themselves, where should they go? What should they do?
So, yes, I'm very, very proud to say that the flex data is in Trade Alert. And I think I've mentioned it a couple times, we're enhancing things with Greeks and theoretical values at trade time. And I mean, the reason you're hearing so much about it is that the volume is up there. We've traded over 1 million flex contracts a day several times this month, and yet, including yesterday, we traded 1.1 million. So a lot of people getting into it because they're trading RevCons, they're discovering RevCons. It's cool stuff. If you're interested in testing out and seeing what we have, just head over to Cboe.com/DNA. Or Cboe, yeah, that's a different one. With Cboe.com/RMA, which is Risk and Market Analytics, but Cboe.com/DNA is Data and Access Solutions, which is another way to see a kind of a broader view of what we have. Come visit.
Come check it out, listeners. Cboe.com/RMA. Hit them up, check them out. Let them know you're intrigued. Let them know you like hearing the Flowmaster on the old show. He certainly does bring some interesting data. I'm looking at it right now, listeners. You too can pull up, if you had the old Trade Alerts, what's going on in the flex in names like Nikola, 250,000 of the Jan 2025 one puts American style, 55 cents. I don't know why they can't trade those in the list. I thought they would be European style, but there we go. That's what's open for size. 170,000 of the two puts also open. So some size puts open out there in Nikola, which again, it's just a cheap name, but it gives you some sense of Nikola, 55 cents right now. Rough go for them. They're not feeling the FFIE love out there. But unfortunately, that's all the love we have for the show today. Back again in a little bit for TWIFO. Back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, with the newly minted Dr. V stocks to talk all things vol, including a smattering of international vol. You folks are liking the international vol. It's something we've always wanted to add to vol views, so I'm glad we're able to do it. And who better than Russell to do it with us? So all sorts of fun there. Then back again for you pro folks, because we like you, one final time for the week for a whole bunch of weirdness on the options oddities front before we're back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.